Hi, I'm Dominique Raccah, and I'm the publisher of Sourcebooks. You know, it was interesting to me because when I came into this space, I believed two things that were profoundly wrong. You know, I believed that transformation would happen a generation from now. So it was going to be my kids. It wasn't going to be us, you know. And I believed it was going to be led out of the conglomerates. And that turns out to be wrong. They are not leading. I mean, you know, no matter what you believe, they're not the people who are making big decisions. The people who are making really big decisions, taking big risks, taking big trials, big experiments. And actually, the thing you're most interested in is small experiments, small trials. I had an interesting conversation with somebody. I was talking about our app business, and so one of the big six, and he said, well, apps is a four-letter word in my boardroom. I can't say, you know, we tried one and it didn't work. And I thought to myself, well, blast, that's just the really like the completely the wrong lesson, right? The lesson is experiment a lot broadly, you know, fail a lot, learn from it, and go forward, right? And so I think the reason that we're getting stalled with the big six is that they don't really get that failure's a plus, that you kind of, you know, you've got to take lots of little risks, and you can't have big visions because you're going to actually learn on the ground. You know, I think it was Sun Tzu who said, you know, no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy, right? So it's really like that, right? I mean, that's what the digital space is like, right? It's kind of like, you know, you do something, you think it's going to work like this, it totally doesn't, but something else happens that's really interesting, and you go off in a different direction, and that turns out to work. Right, so there's this agility concept that the tech guys have. So I think you've got to kind of, you know, reconstitute publishing as you know, as sort of broader media and technology. So sort of reconstitute us as a different vision, you know, long form delivery of content, but in lots of different ways, right? Anytime, anywhere, any device, right? And what it is about then is about connecting voice to readers, right? And voice being authors, but amplified, right? You don't want just to, so you're going to try a bunch of things, and for different authors you'll try different things, right? Because not all authors are trying to reach the same audiences or in the same ways, right? So trial and to some extent, you know, failure, which is not a nice word, but it is, you know, it's kind of like part of the package now, and we kind of have to just go with that. Agility matters right now. How fast you can move matters. It's why I think independent book publishers, particularly mid-sized book publishers, have an incredible advantage right now. I mean, just, you know, it's always been a disadvantage to be a mid-sized press, you know, but right now, it probably is the biggest advantage we've got. There's a whole set of our authors for whom we're really kind of conceptualizing a whole bunch of other ideas for them, and they're really excited about it. And it's a partnership, right? So it's publishing defined as to make your work public, right? So it's the broadest definition of publishing. Your work being not necessarily a book. Your work could be your message, right? It could be, you know, and certainly there are people who can do that for themselves. Seth Godin certainly is an exemplar of that. But by and large, authors are not, they're more interested in the creation and in the connectivity than they are in the minutiae and the details of, you know, all the little things that you've got to do to make things happen in this space, right? Because as we all know, you know, there are 8 formats, and you've got, you know, just ebooks, you know, has a whole thing, and then there's, you know, apps that has a whole other thing, and God help you if you're in Android apps because you got multiple things, and right, you know, I don't know what the future is for Borders. I certainly wish them well, But I can tell you that Barnes & Noble's doing great work, so the fact that those guys went from a standing start at the beginning of the year to, I would say, the number 2, ebook retailer in America, in 8 months, somebody needs to say kudos to them. They clearly came into the game. But it also points to something that we're not saying and we need to say, which is the importance of brick and mortar retail, right? Because they did that by converting people who were going into their stores into Nook users. So there's a role in talking about brick and mortar that we're kind of not using. And it's a role that I think is both publisher-based and brick and mortar-based, right? So there's a partnership there that needs to really think about, how do we expand the vision of what brick and mortar can do? How do we test some of that? And we're actually developing tests with brick and mortar partners right now, because we think that for different verticals of ours, there could be a really interesting set of possibilities, right? Because, the web is interesting, but it's also loud and in some ways disturbing, right? It doesn't, when you're focused on a particular issue or you have a particular interest, getting more focused information could be very useful to you. I think there's a role there for our brick and mortar partners. So do I see a future in which brick and mortar disappears? No, I don't. I believe that there will be brick and mortar long into the future. I could be wrong about that, but I think that there's a role for them. Do we believe that if brick and mortar disappears, discovery is challenged? Absolutely. It is the fundamental problem of the web is discovery, and we don't have good methodology for that. Whether you're looking at Amazon or you're looking at Barnes & Noble, Barnes & Noble's slightly better than Amazon, but certainly Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, all of those guys. So I think that you've got a lot of people working on this discovery problem. You're going to see some of it come out of social reading. There's probably, personally, I know of about a dozen social reading experiments, and those things are going to be interesting discovery experiments to find out which of those things might work. And then, I think there are other kinds of experiments that you're going to see come out.
How do you make decisions about what to invest your people's time in, your own personal time in,
Great question.
and your resources in at your publishing company?
Great question. So I think that goes to the heart of what Agile is. Agile is that you're making decisions all the time. And that, so at Sourcebooks, we've developed a rubric to actually gauge opportunities, and we meet pretty much weekly to look at what we're doing and what we're not doing. Because we are making choices every day about, I want to do a deal with this one. Okay, if I do this deal, it's got to precede that one and probably supplement this one, right? So, you're kind of constantly going through that. But we developed and in fact, I'm actually at Tools of Change. I'm actually going to walk people through what our rubric looked like as a way of helping them to develop their own. Because I think it's essential that people do that, right? It is not publishing as usual. It is not the case that the model that our business model is basically exploding around us, right? So we are fundamentally in search of a business model, right?
Oh, of course.
And we're not kind of saying that too loudly, but that's true, right? So let's actually put a methodology in place so that search becomes more focused and more targeted, and really we actually get to a conclusion on what's working and what's not.
This is a time when the most popular topic is what to say yes to, but I think in reality, for most companies of your size,
it's actually
what
about
to say no to is
it's actually
even
exactly
as
right.
important. Yeah.
We started the year with 72 digital innovation ideas that on January 1st, I put them all together in one sort of big spreadsheet, and there were 72 of them. We ended with 7. And I think there's a real opportunity to partner together now, right? So, Sourcebooks, we're open for business. We're talking about partnership. We're totally interested in working with people, and I think that's one of the things that's a little bit different in the space, right? Whereas we used to be somewhat competitive, all of us, right? Publishers, no longer. Yeah. Now we are, Now it's about collaboration and creating, publisher with authors, publishers with other kinds of companies, publishers with, we have an enormous, there's never been more opportunity than there is today.